Okay, what a day for a daydreaming boy. So lots to get to today. Might as well start off with Aaron Judge. Hits his 42nd home run of the year. 42 homers, got 91 RBIs now, batting an even 300. OPS is second in the league at 1.059. He's got 12 home runs now in his last 14 games. In 8 multi-hit games in the last 2 weeks. You want to talk about being on a roll, he is on a roll. So he has now 380 total fantasy points. Obviously, he's first at his position. Just having an incredible season. And I may not be the biggest fan of the Yankees, but he's a lot of fun to watch. Let me tell you that right now. So he's still trying to match his 52 home runs from essentially his rookie year. So we'll see if he can get there. I don't see anything holding him back from that. We'll see if he can get to 60. It would be cool if he got, maybe 62. That would be a cool thing to do. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, he's just having a heck of a July, and he's on a heck of a run right now. So obviously Aaron Judge fans are happy, and Yankees fans are happy as well. Also, Jonathan India, he's an interesting case. He's 25 years old, second year in the league. He is rostered quite highly. He's rostered in 71% of ESPN leagues, but he does have only 86 points, fantasy points on the year. So he's been struggling. In the month of June, had a 167 average. But now he's slashing 259, 337, and 459 to go along with 4 home runs in July. This is off RotoWire. And he is hitting the ball much better. He was one of your daily leaders last night. He goes 3 for 5 with a 2-run home run and a double. And the Reds did beat the Orioles 8-2 last night. So there goes the Orioles World Series aspirations. Not that they had any to begin with, but anyways. So Jonathan India, he might be a guy that you might want to look at just to kind of follow along, see how his career progresses, because he did have a pretty solid rookie campaign. He had 34 doubles, 143 hits. He did strike out 141 times, but he did have 21 home runs, 69 RBIs, 71 walks, 269 batting average, 376 on base, 459 slugging, giving him an OPS of 835. So pretty good start, but he's down to a 722 OPS this year. So obviously he's been struggling a little bit. We'll see where he goes from there. And William Contreras, he had 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, a couple of runs scored, obviously, 14 total fantasy points, 3 hits in the game. He's got 119 fantasy points in total. Looks like he's 11th in the position. At 119, I'm a little surprised at that. And you guys know how I feel about that position rank. I don't think it's at all that accurate. But maybe I'm just missing something. Who knows? But he is doing well. I mean, this is another guy. He's only rostered in 25% of ESPN leagues. He might be a guy that you might want to take a look at and say, hey, I'll follow along with him if I need some depth. Maybe just add him to the bench or even add him to your watch list like I have. Just to kind of follow along, see where he goes from here. He's 24 years old. This is his second year in the league. He only played 4 games in 2020. So he had 163 at-bats, played 52 games in 2021, and now 50 games played in 2022. So he's got a 263 batting average, 349 on base, and 551 slugging for a 900 OPS. So obviously that's pretty good. And again, 24 years old, so he might be a guy that, you follow along, you look at, and, he could be a guy that you might want to draft next year. And speaking of that, I thought I'd go over maybe 5 guys you might want to take a look at hitting-wise. And number one, this isn't necessarily in order, but Andrew McCutchen. Now, I know back in the day, and when I'm talking back in the day, I'm talking about a decade ago. He was an MVP caliber player, batting 310, 320. With solid OPS of 953, 911, 952. His WAR was 7, 8, 6.4, and even 4.8 and 5.3 in different areas. He could steal you 30 bases, hit you, 25, 30 home runs. This was a guy that you really did want on your team. Obviously, he's not that guy anymore, but he is having a solid season. 257 batting average, on base 324, slugging 395. Obviously, he's not what he was. OPS 719, obviously not great. But, this is also a guy that has 195 total fantasy points. He's only rostered in just over half of ESPN leagues. So if you do need some depth, I do think you should at least take a look at him, if nothing else, and see where he kind of goes from here. He did have a slump earlier this year. He has kind of bounced back from that. So, he was 2 for 4 last night with a run, stolen base, got 7 fantasy points. And he's only had one day where he's got a negative, actually the 29th, the day before yesterday, he got -1 fantasy points. Other than that, he hasn't got a negative number, and he's had marks of 7, 9, and 8 to go along with 7 for last night. So he might be a guy that you might want to take a look at if you need some depth. Another guy you might want to take a look at, that I've taken a look at, and I've almost added him a couple times, is Rowdy Tellez, first baseman and DH for Milwaukee Brewers. He's got 224 total points, and he's rostered in 62% of ESPN leagues, so he might be available. He's got 20 home runs on the year, 65 RPIs. Batting average a little low, 234. His on base 314, slugging 467. Did have a couple of home runs on the 27th a few days ago, 6 RBIs in that game. But he might be a guy where, he's going to hit for power, it looks like. And I know I've mentioned him before. I have taken a look at him before. But again, he might be a guy. He's slugging in the last 7 days, 667. That has a lot to do with the fact that he did hit a couple of home runs on the 27th. So that mark is pretty skewed. But yeah, so Rowdy Tellez seems like a good option, especially if you need some depth. And he's also a younger guy too, so you can follow along in his career. He was a super late draft pick. He was like a 30th round draft pick. So it is kind of cool when guys like that can kind of break out into the majors and do well. John Birdie, I know he's out. He's on the 10-day injured list, and he might be out possibly even until mid-August, something like that. But if you need stolen bases, he's your guy. He's got 28 stolen bases on the year. 131 total fantasy points. He's only rostered in 28% of ESPN leagues. He's not going to hit you many home runs. He's only got 2 home runs on the year, only 19 RBIs on the year. But if you need some stolen bases, 271 batting average, pretty solid batting average, I would say. That's a guy you might want to add on your team. But he is out right now on the injured list, so maybe just add him to your watch list, see when he comes back, or just grab him and put him on your injured list yourself. And I know I've taken a look at him before. So he might be another guy that you might want to add. And it's funny that I'm going to mention him, but Matt Carpenter, back in the St. Louis days, played a number of years for St. Louis. Now he's on the Yankees. He's also got 130 total points. And again, these guys are probably not going to make a huge difference on your roster. What I like about Matt Carpenter, though, he is rostered in 55% of ESPN leagues. He's got over, I think it's about a 1,200 OPS. I might want to double check that really quick. He's got 15 home runs, 36 RBIs, and 106 at-bats. So he's just going bananas right now. Yeah, it's 1.218. So over 1,200 OPS. Obviously, that he's not going to stay there. He's never actually had finished the year OPS-wise over 900. His best was 885 in 2016. But again, if you want to follow along, he's obviously on a roll right now. If you want to follow along, especially if you're a Yankees guy, throw him on your bench, play him a couple games, see what happens. But he's batting .311, on base of .425, slugging .792. Some ridiculous stats, ridiculous numbers for him. He's only played 40 games. Again, only 106 at bats. But if you want to have some fun with him, why not? I mean, you know, part of the whole playing fantasy sports is having some fun, right? So why not add him? And let's see, is this second to last but not least? Christian Walker. He's got 220 points. He's only eligible at first base. And obviously first base is pretty deep. But he's got 220 points, rostered in just over 50% of ESPN leagues, slugging .436, on base 304. His batting average is really, really low, 197. So I can understand why you wouldn't add him to your team, because that batting average is just ridiculously low. But he does have 23 home runs and 52 RBIs. So it's hard to argue with a guy like that. So yeah, you'd have to determine if you can handle a guy with a 197 batting average. I've kind of struggled to have guys with 210, 220. Even that's kind of low for me, at least what I like to have. So I can understand why you'd hesitate on the 197 batting average. But again, 23 home runs, 220 total points. I mean, why not give him a shot? So he could be a guy that you want to take a look at. And last but not least, Isaac Paredes, second baseman for Tampa Bay, is 23 years old. So here's another young guy that, could have a really, really good career. But again, batting average-wise, not the greatest. 214, on base 288, slugging .476. So I know these aren't the greatest statistics in the world. But again, this is another guy that, you may want to add just because, he is having a decent season. He would provide you some depth. I think he's averaging about 2.2 fantasy points a game. So he definitely has slowed down a little. There's no question he's slowed down. But I mean, you could, or it's actually 2.3 now that I see it. It's 2.3. He's available in 80% of ESPN leagues, though. Doesn't strike out a ton, but he's also eligible at first, second, and third, which I think is a huge, huge benefit. So, yeah, I mean, I think he could help out. So, yeah, I think that's about it. See if there's anything else going on. And I did get some messages on Twitter saying that the webcam was looking much better. And so I appreciate that, appreciate the compliments. And yeah, so I think I'll wrap it up there. And hopefully you do well in your fantasy leagues today. I might have a fantasy football, my first fantasy football video coming out later this week, hopefully, because I'm going to start that up, I think, soon, now that, we got some workouts coming in. And I've seen a couple of the brush-ups, Josh Allen getting into it with one of his linemen. That was funny to watch. And yeah, so I think I might add one of those pretty soon. But in the meantime, thanks for checking out the channel and the video, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.